Before we get into the message today, we are going to start a new series for the month of January, and I'm naming it Living Out Loud. Living Out Loud. But before we start, I want to call your attention to something that is on the tables in front of you. These are yours for you to use every Sunday however you want, if you want to use them. They are takeaway cards, takeaways from today. I believe that when you invest your time in coming here in person or in tuning in online, that you are making a statement that your spiritual, personal growth is important to you. And I remember well the many, many years that I sat where you're sitting listening to my minister, Bob Stevens, way, way back when. And there were so many times that I heard him say something or that a thought crossed my mind that I really wanted to capture, that I really felt was the gift of why I was there that particular day. So I had the idea to create these cards for us to use, for you to use, to take away anything that is important to you that you want to remember throughout the week. There's a place for you to put the date. I know some of you journal. You may already do this electronically, and that's fine. I don't mean to suggest you should change whatever is working for you, but these are for you to use as you see fit. And then on the back side is something that you might find helpful. There's a little QR code that takes you directly to a link tree with a lot of the different resources that we have that you might want to quickly access. Whether it's during announcement time when I tell you about an activity or something, you can quickly go there. So I hope you'll use those, and I hope that they will be of service to you. So very much like the song that Jimmer just shared with us, all about saying yes, that's where we're going to begin this series on Living Out Loud, with the idea of perhaps having our New Year's resolution or our New Year's intention be to say yes. When I think of January, I think of January very much as like a do-over or a do again, or a clear, clean slate, kind of like a chalkboard where everything has been wiped clean and it's a clear slate for us. Oftentimes, what we do with that clear slate is we write on it all the kinds of things that we don't want. You know, resolutions like less chocolate, less coffee, less swearing, less driving over the speed limit, whatever it may be. A lot of less this, less that. And that has its place, but this month I want to encourage us to have a different focus, and to have that focus be a focus of addition. What is it that we want to bring into our life experience? Not how do we shrink to fit into that smaller pair of jeans, or how do we shrink other parts of our lives, but how do we actually expand our spirit and soul to live out more of our divine identity? Does that make sense? Yes? Okay. So this idea of living out loud, what does it mean to live out loud? Have you ever been in a big cathedral that has a pipe organ? Yeah? And one of the things, or even down at Balboa Park with the pipe organ there, one of the things about a pipe organ is that there's a phrase, you know, you've probably heard the phrase to pull out all the stops. Have you heard that phrase? Did you know that that comes from the idea of playing a pipe organ? That's where it comes from. To pull out all the stops means to pull out all the things that kind of baffle or mute or soften the volume of the sound, and instead to open it up so every single pipe can be played. To be playing full out. So the expression to pull out all the stops means to really put yourself in completely and totally. To live quietly would be to have those stops put in and the sound be quite muted. But to live out loud is to pull out all the stops. To pull out all the stops. It means to live more boldly. It means to kindly but clearly say what's on your mind. To speak truthfully and powerfully. It means to be your authentic self, not the self that somebody told you should be or that society tells you you should be, but who you truly, genuinely are. To live out loud is to live authentically. It's to live boldly. It's to live visibly, to let what you think and what you stand for be known, to be known with clarity and wisdom and power. It's to live with passion and expression, to be more of a full vehicle of God. To do this, I think, to live out loud requires a certain foundation. And I think that foundation has to do with remembering who and what we are. Remembering who and what we are. We hold to be absolutely true that we are first and foremost spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings having this human incarnation, having this human expression. Our call, our invitation, is to allow as much of the fullness of who and what we are as spiritual beings to express through every aspect of our lives, to pull out all of the stop, to remember that we are inherently good, to remember that we are inherently divine, to remember that we are each born in original blessing, not original sin. Original sin is a church concept and teaching, not to be literally found in the Bible. And yet the idea of original blessing is to be found in the Bible, in the very first book of the Bible, in Genesis 1:26. You are made in the image and after the likeness of God. In the image and after the likeness of God. So a basic fundamental starting point, I think, to live out loud is to always remember what we are and whose we are. We are God's. We are spirits. We belong to that infinite presence. Both Charles Fillmore, who was the co-founder of the Unity movement that began in the late 1800s, and Ernest Holmes, who was the founder of religious science, both of these teachers taught that we are not separate from the infinite, that we are expressions of the infinite. That's powerful. You are an expression of the infinite. Turn to somebody next to you and quietly say to them, you are an expression of the infinite. Be bold. Don't be afraid. You're an expression of the infinite. Now, which was easier? Was it easier to say it or easier to hear it? Most of you said, say it. Did some of you say both? Good. You go to the head of the class. Head of the class. For some of us, myself included, it's probably easier for me to say it than to receive it. And both are important. Both are important. We are an expression of the infinite. It does not mean we always act that way. That's the big problem, right? It does not mean we always act that way. And sometimes we don't act that way because nobody ever told us the truth of who and what we really are. In fact, sometimes we've been told, and church is largely responsible for some of this, the exact opposite of who and what we really are. We act out of the clarity of understanding who and what we are. And if we're not clear about who and what we are, we act out in all sorts of ways. If we are clear about whose and who and what we are, it begins to mold and shape everything. It begins to really directly empower what we say yes to. It gives us the courage, no matter what we look like, it gives us the courage to live more boldly, to live out loud, to live out loud. We are designed, I believe, for greatness. We are designed to be ever unfolding. We are designed to be continually on an upward spiral of fuller expression of our own capacities. How do we know when we're not doing this? It's a good question, right? How do we know when we're not doing this? I think one of the ways that we know when we're not doing this is a word or a phrase that we use in metaphysics quite a bit, and it is the phrase divine discontent. Divine discontent. I think that's a powerful concept. Divine discontent. It's when we have that strange feeling of restlessness. It's when we have that feeling that something's not quite right. You know what I'm talking about, right? It's that feeling when suddenly our life has become a little too tight, a little too constricted, a little too not right. Something's off. Something's off. We may have a tendency, especially if it's a really busy time of the year, or if we have a lot of outward responsibilities, we may become distracted and aware of that divine discontent for brief moments, but we kind of push it aside. Because divine discontent is usually pretty quiet, at least it is in the beginning. At least it is in the beginning. It's that feeling that something's missing, that something's not quite right, that you're not living the way that you could be living or want to be living, that you're not being quite true to your own unique soul, that something just doesn't click, it doesn't fit. The more we grow spiritually, the more we start to pay attention to these things. To pay attention not just to the good that we are manifesting when we're practicing spiritual principle, not just practicing experiences like gratitude, but we also pay attention to when something feels not quite right. And we probe into it. We try to understand what's beneath that, what seems to be missing, what seems to be off. We're not afraid to ask those deeper questions and to stay in the question long enough until we get an answer that makes sense to our spirit, that we resonate with, and we go, oh, it has something to do maybe with my livelihood. Oh, it has something to do with my primary relationship. Oh, it's got something to do with my body. I don't know what the answer is, but I know there is that in you, just as there is that in me, that does know our answer. And it lies beneath that divine discontent, paying attention to that divine discontent. We all have used the metaphor of the mighty oak tree, big, beautiful oak tree that bursts forth from a tiny acorn. I mean, isn't it phenomenal when we think about nature and we think about just the vastness of that, just that one example, a tiny acorn, about the size of the macadamia nut that took me down yesterday, really. I had a divine appointment with that macadamia nut, the only one on my entire driveway, and I have a huge driveway. What's that about? I'm going to meditate on that. But a tiny acorn, and we think about what it has the potential of becoming, and not just the potential of becoming, but if an acorn could want something, and I'm anthropomorphizing here, but if an acorn could want something, I've got to believe that it wants to be what it is, has the blueprint to be, which is what? That mighty oak tree, right? That mighty oak tree. It's the blueprinted demand in the essence of that acorn. I believe that each of us as divine beings in human form have a blueprinted demand to live out of that divinity. And that when we're not doing a good enough job of it, we experience divine discontent. It doesn't mean that we're bad. It just means that the same thing that would happen if we take that acorn, that is meant over time to answer its divine blueprint demand to be a mighty oak, if you stick it in a small pot and you never take it out of the pot, what's going to happen to it? Its growth is going to be severely stunted, not because there's something wrong with the acorn, but because it is in the wrong pot. And some of us are in the wrong pot. Maybe a lot of us are in the wrong pot. I've got to be careful how far I go with this little line of thinking here. Huh? No? Okay. Don't get me going. I'm glad I didn't hear it, Mike. But there's that's imprinted in you. Just like there's that which is imprinted in me. A greatness of spirit. Not that comes out of ego, not that comes out of, I'm going to be so great that I'm going to be what do they call it, a social media influencer or something. I'm not talking about that kind of greatness. In a way, I'm talking about a greatness that takes more courage. It's the greatness to be your real self, your real God self. And so paying attention to when we feel divine discontent is an important part of getting to being able to say yes, to live out loud, to live more boldly. Ernest Holmes wrote about this. He said, "There is something within us all which constantly pushes us forward, which demands continual progress. Inertia may hinder our paying much attention to this inner urge, but it is always there." I would say it's not just inertia, but divine discontent that can keep us from paying attention to it. It's what keeps us going ahead, because it is what we are, demanding expression. Made in the image and likeness of the Father, we cannot accept stagnation. Something protests against it. We must be moving forward into a higher and more satisfying spiritual nature. I like that phrase, satisfying spiritual nature. This divine discontent is a factor in our very makeup, and unless we are following its promptings, we're not happy. We cannot get away from it because it is part of our nature. Our unfoldment is for something which our unfoldment is something for which we are specifically responsible. Specifically responsible. You and I are always being invited into higher and higher levels of expression. And the divine discontent is a form of that invitation to step into a higher expression of yourself. But we don't always pay attention to the call. Sometimes a call comes quietly. Sometimes a call comes boldly. Sometimes a call comes in a way that we kind of have to decipher it. Sometimes it comes where we have to pay attention and it might feel awkward in the moment, but we're being tapped on the shoulder by life, by the universe, by God, by spirit, by whatever you want to call it, to wake up and to step into a grander expression of ourselves. I want to read a little, or share and read part of a little story to you. Some of you may recall this if you ever were a student of the late Father Leo Booth. How many of you recognize the name Father Leo Booth? Only a very few of you. So he was a Catholic priest. He passed in 2015. He was a guest speaker at any number of our Unity conventions and in our Unity churches. And I believe we had Father Leo at least once or twice many, many years ago. He is probably best known for the work that he did in recovery. And recovery not just from substance recovery or substance abuse, but even recovery, as he would say it, from the addiction to religion. Yeah, the addiction to religion. So this is a true story that happened to Father Leo. So he was on his way to a conference in Bali. And when he arrived at the British airport, he was from England, when he arrived at the British airport to go to Bali, he was told that he was going to have problems because his passport hadn't expired but only had 4 months left on it. And if you've done international travel, you know that your passport needs to have 6 months on it. And so the person at the British airport told him, well, we would suggest that you stop in Singapore before you go to Bali and go to the British Embassy in Singapore and ask for them to extend your passport. It shouldn't be a problem, but it may take several days, to get to the embassy and then have the embassy take care of this for you. Well, he was not too happy about that, and he's sitting at his gate kind of fuming in his mind about how inconvenient this is, and he's going to miss the conference that he was really looking forward to speaking at, when he notices that the woman who had been sitting next to him waiting for their plane had gotten up, obviously had gone to the bathroom, came back, and he noticed that her skirt was stuck in her underwear. As he sat there, he wondered, this is a spiritual moment. What do I do and how do I handle this? And so he made a live out loud, bold decision to take action. Excuse me, he says to the woman, your skirt is stuck in your underwear. Just stop there for a moment. Your skirt is stuck in your underwear. Oh dear, I hate it when I do that. I thought it was better for me to tell you, he mutters. Thank you. I detect an accent. Are you from England? He says, yes, so am I, but now I live in Singapore. What do you do? Booth asked. Are you ready for her answer? I work for the British Embassy in Singapore. He got his extension on his passport that same day when he arrived. An excuse me moment. Did he have to kind of live a little boldly in that moment to have the courage? How many of us, we would have sat and had some dilemma, right? I think, to say, well, do I tell her? Do I not? At one point he says he thought about reaching out and trying to pull the skirt out, but he thought better about that. And this is years ago, imagine now, right? Even higher consequences. But then he decided to take that more bold step to not live quietly, but to live out loud. And had he not, he would have shown up at the British Embassy in Singapore just like any other person showing up trying to get the extension. Paying attention when life is tapping us and following that and seeing where it takes us, seeing what it means, is a way that we live out loud. It's a way that we live more boldly. It's a way that we step into more of who and what we are. Excuse me, I want you to be a greater expression of me than you have been. Imagine that spirit saying to you, excuse me, I want you to be a greater expression of me than you have been. Excuse me, I want you to have courage to lead. Excuse me, I want you to use your creativity in ways that can make a difference. Excuse me, I want you to use your passion to help heal the hurts in our world. Excuse me. And so we have an opportunity to pay attention. Where is life, God, the universe, whatever word you're comfortable using there, inviting you to step into? Instead of less than, where are you being invited to be more? The invitation is there. You may be familiar with this statement from Michelangelo. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that our aim is too low and we reach it. Let me say that again and end with this. The greatest danger for most of us is not that our aim is too high and we miss it, but that our aim is too low and we reach it. God bless you.